Christianity. It's been around for a century, and over that time period, many different groups have stemmed from its origins. Many popular ones, like Catholicism and Protestants, have made a name for themselves with their own ideals and trying to place themselves in front of everyone else. However, among those different Christian groups that were formed, one of them does things on their own way, and very much different. Or should I say traditional? The Eastern Orthodox Church is one not too many people are familiar with. However, it is said to be the second largest Christian group out there. I myself am a part of the faith and attend Sunday services as well. But I feel like there's more to learn about the church than what we just read in the Bible. To start my look into the church, I decided to go to the two members with the most answers. Both are priests, Father Hill and Father Alexander. Both priests of the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church here in Phoenix, Arizona, were kind enough to sit down with me to discuss their viewpoints of the church, as well as their journeys of how they ended up as priests.
Yeah, I think I knew as a boy that this was my destiny. I wasn't raised in the Orthodox Church, I was raised in a Protestant church and fully explored that and was very intentional about that from a very young age. But I think through my reading and discovery, realized that there was an older, deeper, more established church, and I was compelled to seek that out, and so here I am. It came with some sacrifices, but yeah, I've never regretted it.
Being able to be in positions of ministry even before going to seminary or being a priest or anything, and realizing how fulfilling that also is, to be able to kind of share the faith, and was really a very powerful thing for me. And I think, even from a young age, there was that sort of thought deep down of maybe that's something I want to do, but it wasn't anything I took seriously until, after college, and then and sort of kind of taking on a little bit of a role in ministry in the church I was in San Francisco, and saying, okay, this is something I gives me fulfillment, I want to do, and then going to seminary kind of solidified that of like, oh yeah, this is,
To many people, they may not be able to spot the differences between Christian churches. Many look similar and sometimes have similar services. But as I learned, there is a difference, and it may not be what you think.
So I was from Catholicism. Roman Catholic. I was considering the priesthood when I was in college, and so I started to take early Christian classes about Christianity and philosophy classes. And I remember stumbling upon the history of the church and hearing about Orthodoxy through that class that I took. And I went to the library, found books about Orthodoxy, and read about it, and realized that this is the true faith and the faith I want to be a part of.
the sort of packaged answer that, come off the street and you're like, what's the difference of the Orthodox faith? The usual packaged answer would be like, well, we're kind of like the Catholics, but we don't have a pope, and we have a few other answers, like questions like that. Like it really is a full life. Like there's not a portion of my life that is just sort of not a part of it. And and again, it gives you that framework for your whole life of how to live, how to, do everything in your life. And so that when I really am engaged with the faith and with Christ, then my whole life is engaged in life and light and good things.
Yeah, I think we're profoundly different from them, and I think that we've become more so, or maybe I should say that they have become more so, because the Orthodox Church understands that the ancient church essentially got it right. So any deviation from that is a departure. So that puts us instantly at odds with the Western Church, who holds to the view of sort of development of theology over time. So I think C.S. Lewis called it the snobbery of chronology. We don't adhere to that. We think the Holy Father's got it right.
You look at a lot of, especially more, the newer sort of Western Protestant things. It's like we go to church on Sunday, we feel good, and maybe we pray and we have these nice sort of feelings, but for the Orthodox faith, there's sort of that depth of actual meaning that even in my sorrow, even when I'm down, even when things are bad, like there's Christ, there's the church, and here's the framework wherein I can exist even as a sort of person who's going through a lot, who's sad, or who's, feeling, every sort of feeling and possibility that you have in your life, the church is able to kind of minister to that and have an answer for that and have, a presence in that. Instead of just like, oh, you come to church in your suit and tie and you're looking good and everything has to be good. There's like every single part of my life can be sort of changed by the church, and so there's really that framework for life. There's that there's that idea of how to live a true Christian life that doesn't just simply mean like, oh, do whatever you want, come on Sunday, feel good. You know, here's how you actually follow and imitate Jesus Christ.
As we look at religious attendance, many in the country don't normally follow or attend a religious service, let alone want to be a part of a religious world nowadays. With people in the country transitioning to an unidentified religion, why is this happening?
You know, and I think that every sort of region has its particularities. Phoenix is a resort town with ADD. There's always a million things happening.
Oh, yeah.
There's always a reason not to be in church, as far as that goes. But I guess I would say, sort of beyond that, because again, I do think about that. To be a Christian now, to identify as a Christian carries certain risks, because the term Christian has been co-opted by socio-political movements. So now some people will identify Christian as being a hallmark of a particular spot on the socio-political sort of spectrum, if you will. And some people, I think, are rightly really turned off by that. We're not political. I don't allow politics in this church. It has nothing to do with the church. So I think that people find it, you know, they find that very off-putting. And then I think that also, again, because of certain Western Christian, we would say, misunderstandings, so penal substitutionary atonement, that God punished Jesus to get to us, and that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
They see the church as being very harsh. What the data show is that the church is understood as being sort of anti-science, anti-this, anti-that, anti-that. That's not the Christian faith. So we believe in a God of mercy and love and tenderness and all of those beautiful things that he says about himself, you know, unalloyed by other base considerations like politics and punishment and singling out particular groups that we think are worthy of particular condemnation. So we need to do a better job of proclaiming a message of the love of God to people, proclaiming a message that you know that there is a path into the light, and we don't need to dwell in the land of darkness, as we see with the school shootings that we're all gravely lamenting. You can curse the darkness all you want, you'll do nothing. But if we light the candle of our love for God, that will make a difference.
There's not a whole lot of people who actively reject the church, who say, I hate it, I'm not going anymore, you know, like, this is the worst thing, I don't like it for X, Y, and Z reason. The large majority, really, it just becomes an apathy, you know, like, if I go, again, like if I go once a week for an hour, it really, for the most part, probably won't change my life. If that's the extent of my association with God and my care for him, it probably won't change my life. Brunch might sound a whole lot better on a Sunday morning. Sleeping in might sound a whole lot better. You know, going for a whole weekend somewhere might sound a whole lot better without worrying about going to church on a Sunday morning. And so it's, at least in my experience with people I know and with people who kind of maybe come back here and different things like that, there's not so much a rejection as sort of a falling away, an apathy of, well, this doesn't seem to be, you know, worth it for me. And the calculus that we all kind of do as to what changes, what helps my life, what changes my life, the church kind of falls further and further down the rungs, the less we kind of put into it. And so when it is just sort of limited to that once a week idea that I don't even really think about it for the rest of the week, and I go once a week, it's like, well, it's not really doing anything for me, so I probably won't even go once a week anymore either. And so that's been a really interesting thing, that I think it's not so much a rejection, it's just a sort of apathy, you know, sort of, well, I got something better to do.
Understanding the church doesn't just mean listening to the stories and enjoying the ambiance. Attending is just part of going. But what do you think is the main point to take away after attending services?
I mean, we essentially do life in the church in a different way, at a different pace, in a different rhythm. And there is a rhythm of prayer in the church. So coming into an atmosphere of prayer and really participating in that and giving giving yourself to that really has a somatic impact. Our bodies respond to that. So the first thing that we would say in terms of involvement is to learn how to stand prayerfully in the presence of God. And because that is in such a different pace and tempo and tone and tenor, and rhythm from the world around us, we have to learn how to attenuate our bodies to that experience. And it's challenging because you come here the first time, you're so used to being keyed up in all the frenetic energy of life, and you come to this very sort of legato, rhythm of prayer. It's a skill you have to acquire. But I think that once you do that, you become very eager to be in that again and again, and it really begins to change everything that we do. And our mind is calmed, our heart is settled, our fears are allayed, and we really come to that place of peacefulness in the presence of God. So that's the first thing that I would say, that you come there, to be edified, and you come really in that sense to breathe the atmosphere of heaven. Which is what we really try. That's why we do as much as we do with incense and all the liturgy and all the sort of sites and everything that we do. So that's the first thing I would say that people should kind of take away, is just the joy, the power that comes from being in God's presence.
While the Orthodox faith still holds on to a lot of basic Christian values, it does have its own identity. From its differences and comparisons to other Christian groups, to the people in attendance, the faith may not be widely known compared to others, but it doesn't need recognition to spread its own word of God.